Damodar. And yeah, I think what I would like to talk about today, what I would like to talk about today is the power of words and the ripple effect it has. Because I've
Oh, Durga
been,
Devi. I don't think I recognize Durga Devi. Did I recognize Durga Devi?
Hi, Veda.
My God, she just popped up on my screen. So happy to see you. Okay, Lakshman, I'm so sorry.
it's
I
okay.
I had to take this opportunity before I forget.
Yeah, I want to hear about like power of words because in yoga, one interesting topic is how there's kind of like a spectrum of everything between how something is very obvious and gross versus something is like very subtle and something you don't really notice. And I feel like words sometimes can be very subtle, but actually have like huge impacts. And I notice it has impacts, especially like, for example, like if you're talking about someone, you kind of have to be very careful. Like the words you choose, or else sometimes it can come out as like, you're talking bad about someone, or um, sometimes if, you're trying to express yourself or kind of like vent, sometimes like your own perception will be entered into that, while you're venting, and maybe the other person might take it differently than what you want it to come out to be, and sometimes like even if you're talking um like bad about someone, even though it's like truthful, it's like you have to be very careful with how you say it as well.
Mm.
So maybe the first thing is you can get into is like the ripple effect of words. So if you hold on, I gotta look at my phone for these questions. So like if you speak uh negatively about someone, can you talk about what happens to the speaker, the listener, and the person being talked about,
Very
and
nice.
how that affects relationships?
Question is very deep, very profound, and very relevant in our lives today. So, with deep gratitude, I would like to share that I'm
Please.
so grateful to each and every one of you for giving me your association. It is the food that sustains my heart and my inspiration in this practice. And so, the words that come out of us are very powerful, so powerful that uh, you cannot, it's difficult to fathom the power of words. So that's why the sages, they always keep quiet unless they need to speak. Because when power is misused, misguided, and misappropriated, then it can have very, very powerful uh, ramifications. So, to answer your question directly, we'll get into the words a little bit more. To just directly answer your question, when you speak any words, what you're doing is you're creating a reality. Words, they are the first form of creation because it alters your consciousness. And from that consciousness alteration, it starts to create a reality. For example, if you say something bad about someone else, oh, Nitai is lazy, for example, the words that you had engaged with are words that you have put into the space for your creation. So the qualities that you just described Nitai with are the qualities that you are now going to attract upon yourself. Because your observation of, say, Nitai being lazy, it's your observation. And when you use those words, you're now inviting that energy because words are cosmic. The one we use is your choice of a cosmic vibration. So now you have now created your personal reality by using those words. So when you speak ill of others, you get all those qualities. So the one who's speaking gets those ill qualities, and the one you're speaking of, they're automatically sheltered and protected by the shield of divine power. Because we are children of God and we are always protected. So that person is not immediately affected by it. But what happens is when those words are spoken, then those words that you have shared will germinate in your mind and you'll share it with others. And this germ will spread all throughout your social circle. And that social circle then expands and it becomes a global circle because the whole world is one big family. So this is how whatever comes out of our mouth has a deep global impact. The first one to be affected is you yourself. You'll notice in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very beautiful text that it says, Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. It's a very beautiful Sanskrit uh, text that expresses how a wise man engages with the words. And it expresses that a wise person is he or she who engages with this universe in glorifying and expressing deep feelings of gratitude. That expression of gratitude is then it turns into prayers. So this is how sound is impacted. I give you an example. Because when words come out of our mouth, it is generally, the faster it comes, the shallower the source is. So when you quick to respond or quick to say something, it's generally coming from the mind and the senses. And then when you wait a little longer, it comes from the intelligence. And you wait even a little longer, then there's silence. And those are words that are coming from the heart. Bhakti is a process where there is a natural transaction of emotion. Communication is happening. Sound vibrations are being exchanged from one heart to another. Words are only engaged with for practical matters, not to describe the, the mental, imaginary imposition of your current status onto others. So this is what sages, they stop. And there are many, many incredible stories in the Vedas. They talk about this, the power of words and how sages, they just always remain aloof. I give you a simple story. There is a story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a very beautiful text. And it's a text that talks about the nectar of life, which is turning the ocean of devotion, of love within the heart. So in this particular text, there is a very, very beautiful story of this great scholar, and his name was Keshava Kashmiri. He was such an erudite scholar that wherever he traveled, people ran in fear of him. Because those days, if you were a scholar, you would have to debate in public. And you have to defend your territory. You have to defend your thesis. So this great scholar, he traveled all over India, debating everybody. And then he came to a place called Navadvip. And there, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this great saint, who was also a scholar, he didn't run for to defend his, intellectual and ego prowess. He just stayed put in Navadvip. So this Keshava Kashmiri said, okay, now you have to debate me. And everyone, the whole town is a witness to see who is the greatest scholar of all time. So on the bank of the Ganga River, they sat down and the whole town came to observe this debate. They wanted to participate in this exchange. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked this great scholar, can you please recite the glories of Ganga Devi? And without a single thought, this great scholar Keshava Kashmiri, he composed 108 beautiful Sanskrit texts with perfect meter, with perfect grammar, and with perfect enunciation. Can you imagine 108 instantly like that? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he just sat there and listened. He didn't say a word. And when this scholar said, okay, you've been quiet the whole time. What do you have to say? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, out of all the verses, there is this one verse. I forget the verse number. I think it's verse number 67 or 70 something. There's one word, the pronunciation, the enunciation of that Sanskrit word had a little bit of defect. And immediately the scholar, how is this possible that this little guy could sat there through this whole recitation of these verses and he could just pinpoint that one little mistake? And of course, that means he had to accept defeat. And at night, when this great scholar was sleeping, he had a dream. And in that dream, the goddess of education, goddess of learning, goddess of knowledge, Saraswati Devi herself, she came to his dream and he says, my dear child, I know you're very sad because you felt defeated today in your debate. But I want you to know that everything that you have spoken, you have shared the truth, but you forgot the person that you're debating. He was the absolute truth. That means that everything you say is my words, but everything he says is the absolute truth himself. And you had spoken, your dissertation, your presentation was from a space of pride and competition. And his silence and his, what is it called? His commentary on your recitation was from a space of clarity and humility. So when we use words, generally, at least in this case, his intention was to defeat the other scholar. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened his mouth, he was not presenting anything with the intention to defeat the scholar, but he simply was there to reveal the truth. So when words are engaged, when we engage with words, the intention of the engagement with the words have a huge implication in our personal environment and our social environment and also on this universe. So therefore, she expresses to him that yes, you may have all this knowledge, all that is fantastic, but what is really needed is the source from where all these words are uttered, are exposed, and are explained in this world. So this is one example that we see in the story of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so important that everything we deliver, because when we engage with each other, we are delivering our consciousness. That delivery of our consciousness should be done with the intention of servitude and humility. That we are there to make this person feel nice. We're here to build and to really acknowledge the beauty that they carry within themselves and not any other motive. So, this is how the transfer of consciousness plays such an
Okay.
important
I really like that. I like the, they're closing at the end, delivery of consciousness and how to serve it with humility. I think that because my follow-up question was going to be around um, how to change your consciousness as a speaker and a listener. So you kind of covered the speaker, you got to serve it with humility, but let's say you're the listener and someone is um, speaking from their mind, not so much from their heart, where it can sound like sometimes like they're venting or they've processed like a certain situation about someone or something and they're speaking negatively about it. Or just sometimes like people are just in bad moods in general and like it seems like everything that comes out of their mouth just seems like very heavy or negative. So do you have any tips on how to either take that or change the conversation or perspective?
Yes, yes. The sages are explaining that when someone is exchanging consciousness with you, the words are actually revealing their consciousness. So when the words reveal their consciousness, from your heart, when you receive it, it'll hurt. It's painful when the words are not kind. So the sages are saying that compassion upon them, you have to say nothing. You simply receive it, and they, generally speaking, when someone is venting or angry, it is unprocessed data. When someone processes, the data is properly processed, they don't vent. So when something is not processed, then they have an indigestion. There's an emotional indigestion or a mental constipation or intellectual block. Something is happening inside. And so if that is the case, then you being a friend, it is important for us to have compassion. If someone is sick, if someone has constipation or diarrhea, you know, I remember my teacher one time. I used to get upset and I used to go and complain. And, I just didn't want to sit with it. I would just run to my teachers and I tell them this is what happened and this was wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't even give him a chance to like even breathe. I just went da da da. I just kept shooting all these darts. And then he goes, one day he tells me, I was young, and he says, "You need to stop with your verbal diarrhea. It stinks." He goes, "And it stinks. I don't like it." And I was like, "What?" Imagine you're just a little kid, and someone tells you that, and you're like, "Oh my God." You just like, and it felt like he belittled my feelings. But what I recognized in hindsight later on, I started to realize he was just, he needed to like zap me, and just like give me a little wake up call. And so I think that we have to be cautious, when someone is constantly giving you this verbal diarrhea or whatever you want to call it, he calls it, then, they may need some help. And then we may be in a position to help guide them to someone that can actually help them. Generally speaking, the sages who have processed the emotions, the offerings that the world gives them, they don't speak very much. And when they share something, it is so deep that the whole world wants to listen what they have to share. And that's the beauty of the practice of bhakti. The practice of daily sadhana, it helps to process all this daily intake of sensory data from our senses, the mind, the eyes, the ear, everything. It helps to process all that and compartmentalize it and put it where it needs to be. And then you can always respond with such love and compassion. I don't know if that helps to clarify anything, Lakshman.
It does, yeah. I was hoping you were giving me a quick and simple formula on how to deflect it.
Okay, let me try and be more direct. If someone is coming there and venting, hear them out. And the most important thing is they're talking because they want to be heard, not because they want advice.
Hmm.
Most people that come and speak, they're not seeking advice. Those that seek advice, they actually uh, they be quiet after they vent and they ask for suggestions. What do you think? And only then they will be willing to receive it. Even then, they may not be willing to receive it. So sages are filled with questions. In the practice of Vedanta, when someone is having all these issues, they come and they vent, and you just simply give them a few questions to let them enter into their heart and let them enter into their intelligence. But asking very practical questions. Where is this emotion coming from? What is the source of it? Do you know? Is it possible it's coming from the mind, or is it coming from the heart, or is it coming from the intelligence? And when we pause by asking them these questions to go into themselves, then they're able to see the truth instead of you trying to answer. Let me tell you what the solution is. The minute you give them a solution, they're going to shut you out. Actually, is one
Mhm.
of the best ways to get people to come and vent to you is you give them solutions because no one wants it. They will just stop coming and complaining to you. And so the best thing, practical advice, suggestion that we can always give is give them questions to go into themselves to see their truth. It's because they're not seeing themselves. That's why they're venting. If they were to see it, then probability of them coming and venting may be less.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
You know, I have this story in my mind from the Ramayana as you asked discussing this thing. There is this queen, her name is Kaikai. She is the third queen of this king Dasarath, who was the father of Ramachandra, this great king. She had her son named Bharat, and she was very attached to him. So she had approached her husband, the king, Dasarath at that time. He says, "My dear king, I would like you to give me two benedictions. I would like to beg two things of you." And she did this with attachment. Number one, I would like my son to be the next heir to the throne of this empire. And the king could not reject. And the second one was that Ram should be exiled for 14 years so my son can reign over this kingdom. Imagine, due to her attachment to her own son, she loved Ram as much, but there was this partial attachment to her own son. Even though Ram was supposed to be the heir to the throne because he was the oldest child, the youngest child became the emperor because of her attachment. And the whole system of governance was disrupted. So when we say things with attachment, what we're doing is we're actually disturbing the general fabric of how society should be governed, how our lives should be governed. Our exchange should be with love and genuine care and service to others, because that is the real communication. The real exchange of consciousness should be done in that spirit. And everybody knows Ram was exiled for 14 years. This great Ramayana came out of that. And his young son Bharat, he never wanted to be the king because he loved his brother so much that he refused to sit on that throne. And he took his brother's shoes and put it on the throne. And he lived in a little cottage outside of the kingdom. But none of that was taken into consideration. It was her attachment. And those two requests was enough to completely divert the whole society at that time. So we have to be careful when we share things, when we speak. Where where is it coming from? If it's coming from anger, envy, jealousy, lust, attachment, those are questions that we can ask ourselves. Is that more practical, Lakshman, or
Yeah, 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 for sure. I think that's good. Um, I think for me, it's clear now kind of how to change your mental state as the speaker and as the listener.
as the speaker, I aim to be.
Oh, but then what do you do um, if you're the person being talked about? Either you find out someone's talking about you, because it's very hurtful. For me, I've never, I've been grateful in my life to always feel like a sense of community, and I've been grateful to not feel a sense of loneliness. And I can remember very specifically that those feelings of loneliness and not feeling like I'm wanted either in like a group of friends, it was been like very hurtful, you know? And I'm wondering kind of like, Do you just accept it? Do you, like what do you do? It's like sometimes you feel just so powerless, you know?
Yes. Yes. It's a very real situation. Normally, when someone is speaking about you, we should know that they're actually not speaking about you, they're speaking about themselves. We do not, we cannot speak about someone else because we actually don't know anyone. How can we speak for someone else or about someone else? That is our perception, our subjective opinion of them. So if someone is going to share something about you to someone, they're speaking about their level of consciousness. Yes, it is a fact when you hear that someone said such and such things about you, it will generally hurt your heart. And why? Because you genuinely care and didn't know that this person thought so ill of you or unkindly towards you. So it hurts to the degree you have a loving relationship with that person, it'll hurt. But then it begs the question, where does it state anywhere in any wisdom text that this mature world is not a place where it's not going to get, when you where you will not be hurt? This mature world is not guaranteed to be a place where you will not be hurt. This is a place where your heart will be tested. Your relationships will be tested. You will be tested to see your resilience, your personal inner anchor constant. And this is why, you know, things like that happened. A sage automatically thinks, this is my best friend. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur is one of his greatest scholars, one of an incredible saint. And he says, those who praise me are my enemies, and those who find fault in me are my best friends. And when I first studied that, and I was thinking, my God, I don't think I can relate to this guy. This is too much for me. It's just too high, you know? It's too high level of consciousness to to measure up to, because who thinks like that? Someone is saying ill of them, it means they're their best friend. It means it propels you to to become more humble and do better uh, in your relationship with others. And this is why the sages, they embrace all criticism with such humility. It is actually for them a stepping stone to advance in spiritual life. They become more and more surrendered. I mean, think about it. This great queen Draupadi in the Mahabharata we study, she's married to five most powerful kings of that time. And she's disrobed in public, her chastity and her modesty being stripped in public, in a public assembly. And her powerful husbands, they sit there helplessly watching. What does she do? What standard does she set? She immediately, out of desperation, uses the most powerful words, is to call out the names of God. Imagine, in our desperation, what do we say? We drop the F bomb, the S bomb, and all kinds of different bombs that we drop when we are frustrated. And what is she doing? She's dropping flower bombs. She is calling out for the Lord of her heart. And the divine shows up and gives her full shelter and full protection. So, I always think it's nice if we can somehow dovetail. Dovetail means to shift our consciousness from every opportunity we get. How can we spiritualize the vibration, the frequency of that exchange? How can we lift it up a little bit, just a notch? And this is the consciousness of a sage. A sage consciousness is constantly thinking how to lift the consciousness of that environment. What do you think, Lakshman? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's very deep. You know, I'm here looking through all my questions, and I only asked you a few, but you somehow touched on all of them.
Okay.
That was really good.
Demaya has some questions, or somebody else may have. We have 5 more minutes. Demaya. Yes, Nama Krishna Devi also has a question. Please.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Um, yeah, hold on right quick. So I wanted to ask, this might sound just, I don't know. How do you know when you're speaking from your mind and your heart? How do you know how do you know the difference between what you're speaking with?
Great question.
I find that to be very challenging to figure out.
Yes. Whenever we speak, the questions we have to ask, what I'm about to share, is this beneficial to others? Is this beneficial to me? Is this the environment I would like to create around me? These questions will immediately help you to find the right target. It's actually not complicated, because when we share something, the sound is creating your reality. You just simply, before you create a certain reality, you just ask yourself. And then you'll be able to check yourself and say the right thing and with the right words. The Supreme Divine Being is known as Uttama Shloka Gunanu Varnane. That means that we must engage our words with the highest frequency possible, Uttama Shloka. So whenever we speak, what is the most powerful, the beneficial, the most high frequency words and expressions that we can have in our exchange? That is the question. Because what happens is, if we are careless in our speech, then what we're doing is we're blocking the path of the heart to express love. Careless speech is the perfect recipe to dissipate this emotion of love in the heart. So why should we do that? Is a question that we can ask ourselves. You have to keep in mind, when you're using words, you're summoning universal forces. If you have all these forces, all this power, how should you engage with it? I see Giovanni. When Giovanni speaks, he's in Italy. When Giovanni speaks, he speaks with such humility and such compassion. It's so easy to fall in love with him. Everybody loves Giovanni in Italy. Nama Krishna Devi, you want to
Yes,
share something with
you
us?
gave, Hare Krishna, yeah. You gave a very good example of Draupadi, because in one sense, yes, she did surrender to Krishna when she was in this difficult situation. But, however, she did also say that they were all cowards. So how do you make the difference with, was she mental or something like that? Because she did say that they were all cowards,
Yes, she was not
not
mental.
doing this.
She was not mental at all, actually. She was factual.
Yeah.
Because you have 5 kings who are responsible to protect you, and not a single one could protect. So she was being factual when she used those words. She was not being coward.
So sometimes you need to tell the truth.
Yes, but what is the intention of the truth? In this, even when you speak the truth, when you speak it with the right intention, it is well received. It has to be delivered with proper consciousness. And the consciousness with which to deliver the truth is humility and sincerity. Even if you have the best dish, but you don't serve it on the right plate, no one wants to take it. You can give a horrible dish in a right plate, people receive it. I remember I asked a friend, I said, hey, what's the most expensive food you have had? He says, well, I spent $2,000 for this platter. And I said, what was in the platter? He took a picture and he showed it to me. It was a tiny little bit of food, but it was so beautifully decorated. And I was just thinking, wow, okay, interesting. So the delivery of the truth is very important. That has to be with humility and sincerity. That is the consciousness with which we should deliver the truth. Not just to say, oh, you are just, dot, 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 dot. You know, there's a better way to deliver the truth. I don't know, Nama Krishna Devi, does that make any sense?
Yeah, I don't know if she had a good platter to put the truth at the time, Draupadi, but I find it's interesting the two sides.
I
To
think
know
that
when
because
you have to go one and the other
she's a
one.
Kshatriya.
Yeah.
Kshatriya, they don't sugarcoat anything. Kali Yuga, we are not Kshatriyas or Brahmanas. We are a whole different level of species where our, our exchange, the consciousnesses of exchange is not on that caliber. So a Kshatriya always speaks, and they receive it like that as well. And I don't know the tone, I don't know the intonation of her voice when she said it, but the words definitely of a Kshatriya speaking the truth. I know in the TV series when she speaks, it looks like she's very angry and she's feisty. I don't I don't know if that's how she spoke those words. But in principle, communicating with humility and sincerity is always, it always hits the right frequency for delivering the truth. Anyone wants to add anything or subtract anything from what I've shared? Or any other questions we have? Let's see. Yes, I think our time is up. So I'm so happy and honored and grateful.
Charlie has a question.
Charlie.
I just wanted to ask one more question about how you practice patience with your truth, just relating it to patience, because I feel like there's so many, like when we talk about namaste, we talk about how the divine light of the universe and the truth of the universe exists in each and every person, and that every person has a divine light within them. But I I think about kids who are like you may a lot of your outreach, a lot of what we did when I first came to MSI and to the Mindful Servant Institute and to Food for Lives was it was outreach it was outreach to college students who are like 18 or 19. But I think there's so many periods of transition in our life that we go through. We're like in this when we're in between two different types of well, there's so many rites of passage and periods of transition where we have to practice patience with our truth. So I just wonder kind of how how do you practice the absence of rush, right? How do you stay away from rushing? How do you how do you avoid rushing into situations where maybe your truth isn't ready to be tolerated, or maybe your truth isn't isn't really ready to be consumed. Uh, does that make sense, Veda?
Yes, yes, yes. Beautiful question, Charlie. We have to see the source. The rush is not something that is coming from us. Rush is a creation primarily of the senses and the mind. Intelligence doesn't rush. The heart is never in a rush. And when we are situated in our heart, we have all the time in the world because we're eternal beings. There's no rush. The rush generally comes when we are situated in our mind. We need gratification yesterday. We need everything done yesterday. So today could be perfect. So therefore, the rush is there. So I recommend people that if it is possible, when there is a rush, that means I was always told that haste is a waste. And I didn't quite spend time into analyzing those words, but I realize it's a waste because it's coming, a powerful force, an emotion that is being charged, is waiting to be presented, but is being rushed. Whenever you rush something, then it generally means that it hasn't been uh, given proper audience with the intelligence involved and the heart involved in that delivery. So generally speaking, rush not needed. And if you are going to rush, at least give the intelligence and the heart a chance to have a say in it. So that's an important thing that I generally tend to do. And I tend to recommend people that please try this. When people are rushing you, they want something from you and they want it now, so you don't even have a chance to think about it. So you can just give them what they want. But that's not your best. Your best is when it's coming from the heart, not when you're rushed. And so I generally recommend just taking yourself to the heart before you deliver anything. Great question, though, Charlie. It could be a whole topic in itself. So anyway, it's so nice to be with all of you. I just want to leave you with this final thought. Please keep in mind that the words that we engage with are not just sounds, but are decisions that we make that shape our reality every single day. And the reality creates an imprint in our soul, in our heart. And that creates our destiny. And so let us be a little mindful of how we engage with the power of sound and engage with using words in our lives. So thank you all very much. It's so nice to be with all of you. I'm tremendously grateful. And I look forward to seeing all of you again next Saturday. And for those of you who are on the Chitta cleanse, I think we're going to have a half an hour break and then we'll rejoin.